I made some tier lists for attack skills and support skills for every single mastery, but I did not do weapon proc skills. And I wanted to do this when there was a bunch of people in chat because I don't really know weapon proc skills that well. So if you guys would help me rate this, I would be very grateful. So we have every weapon proc skill that are in the masteries here. So we can start with Inquisitor. I'm a little familiar with these, but not entirely. So we have let's pull up a calculator so that we can like familiarize ourselves exactly with what stats they do, because I might forget exactly what each one does. So bursting round does like fire AoE, right? Right. So if we were to like just soft cap it, it does more than base weapon with a 4-meter radius, which is kind of okay. And it obviously leans into the whole elemental gunshot thing here, right? It seems kind of mediocre to me. Yeah, I was actually Hamilcar. I was about to say I think I would like it like a B, right? Anybody else? Does anybody else feel like this should be like higher or lower than a B? I feel like this one's kind of I don't know, just we're just gonna rate it as to how we feel. Any factors that makes you feel about them some way, give us your input. I think a B for bursting round is probably kind of good. It's kind of mediocre. It does okay AoE. It doesn't do any exceptional damage really, but it does do a lot more than your single weapon attack. It seems okay. Alright, so chilling rounds. I feel like chilling rounds are better. I feel like chilling rounds are better because it does a lot of CC, right? Its damage maybe is like a little bit lower, but it does like really wicked freezing, right? And it passes through enemies too, right? Like when you get it maxed out. I guess it's actually just based like that. So it does less damage though, right? But it puts a really wicked dot on too. Maybe it does more damage in the long run. I like that it freezes though. Like CC for like a gunner build seems like it has a lot of value, especially if you're doing something like SR. You think it's a C or a D? It's a triple shot. Hey, Nicholas. How's it going, man? I remember watching you stream before. Percent weapon damage. This one? I thought that was only the lightning one. I thought only the lightning one did a shotgun. This one doesn't shotgun, right? Am I missing something? It's a 3 short burst. It's 3 short bursts. Let's see. I think we'll take Nicholas's word for it. If that's true, then it's an A, right? Like it's way better. Yes, both. A mix, just like using the skill in general. Okay, so I'm gonna give this an A then, because it CCs and shotguns. That sounds disgusting. I'm gonna go with, yeah, okay. And I think Storm Spread is probably better than Bursting Round, but not as good as Chilling then. Because this one also shotguns, right? Like, and if you get it really high, I think it like has like a 5 projectile shotgun, right? Or does it go up to 6 or something? Cryptic Grim Dawn description, yeah. I think I'm gonna rate this one like maybe high B. Because it doesn't CC like Chilling Rounds, right? Alright, I think that's good. So let's go with the Nightblade ones. Now, people are generally probably more familiar with these ones, right? Because I've actually used these. I feel like Belgothian Shears is kind of middle of the road, right? It's kind of okay AoE, but it's not omnidirectional like Whirling Death. It doesn't heal you like Whirling Death, but it has a lot of damage potential, right? So let's get rid of this. Let's go to Nightblade. We just do this so we can see. So it's frontal only, right? It has pretty decent weapon, and it also stuns, which is, it's pretty helpful. But it has a target max, which is kind of low. It seems kind of B tier also to me. What do you guys think? So okay, so people seem to agree with B on Bilgothians. I think it's better than those two, though. I think it's better than these two. Alright, so Amarastas. Now, this one actually shotguns too, right? But this is single target only. Now, I'm going to ask some people about this. If we max both of these, you'll see this one says only 100% weapon damage, but it's actually 3 hits, right? So it's actually 300% weapon damage. I'm right with that, right? This is actually 300% weapon damage, right? And then we have Execution. It's really, really strong against things that don't have the enemy health reduction thing. Like against like Celestials, this is a lot better, right? It's still really, really strong single target. Oh, I see what you're saying. It's 3 instead of 2 because you're dual wielding? Ah, okay. So it's more like 150% damage, you're saying. Okay, so it's weaker than Execution. Okay, that's fair. So this is weaker than Execution. So everybody seems to think Execution is S. So I guess maybe I was making a wrong assumption about the damage. The animation speed. I remember hearing Wrecked by Protoss talking about that the other day. So this one is basically like a crappy version of Execution that has animation speed problems, is what you're saying. So maybe this is like, maybe this one's like a C, right? Okay, well, we're gonna assume that the animation speed thing is still a problem with this, I think, for the purpose of this. And does anybody disagree with Execution being S? This seems like it's the boss killer, right? It just does a ton of damage. It's like a shadow strike on your auto attack, kind of, right? And then we have Whirling Death. Now, Whirling Death, you guys are okay, he says A. I kind of agree with that. And like mostly because this thing is like while you're leveling, I think this is the best weapon proc. I think Whirling Death is the best one while you're leveling because it heals you. There's like a thing you can get that makes Whirling Death leech for you, right? And it's really easy to get, which makes this AoE extremely good while you're leveling. So I guess I would agree with this being A. The derp slicers, that's what it is. Okay. And the derp nocturne slicers are probably the easiest MI in the entire game to farm, right? The bugs are everywhere and they drop them like candy. Yeah. Okay. So I think this is... Anybody have any dissension about this? That we should move any of these? Alright. We can move on to Necro. Now this Reaping Strike one, I feel like the main value of this Reaping Strike is like if you really need energy regen. I feel like it's not like a powerhouse or anything. It's just that a lot of times when you're playing Necro as a weapon proc skill, that leech of energy is actually really good. Anybody have any feelings about Reaping Strike other than that? Hamilcar thinks Reaping Strike is A. Necrotic Edge is B or C. I think I kind of agree with you. A or D, depending on if they fit the build or not. Alright, well, we're going to assume if you're using weapon proc skills that they fit your build, I think. Okay, so I think most of us... It sounds like we pretty much agree with Reaping Strike being A. I don't think it's as good as Chilling Rounds, because I really like the CC on Chilling Rounds, but I think it's kind of a toss-up right here. I think it's worse than Whirling Death. I like Whirling Death better. Reaping Strike can be boosted more than Necrotic Edge, really? Okay, that's fair. I would mention one thing about Necrotic Edge. This weapon proc skill used to be the worst thing ever. I don't know how many of you played when this was Fear instead of Confuse, but when this was Fear, this was an F tier skill. This thing was so freaking useless. But now that it's Confuse, it's much better. If you have support, both an A. I kind of like that this confuses, right? Like, Confuse is really good CC. Reaping Strike has no requirements in terms of weapons you can use to proc it. Okay. Oh, that's true. I see it says the melee weapon is the only way to get this one to cleave. Okay. I think they're both A, honestly, too, just because I like that this one has CC. I think weapon proc skills CCing things in an AoE is ridiculously strong for melee. So with everything everybody said, I think this is probably where I'm at. I think that they're both pretty good, but I think Reaping is a little more useful overall because of the energy leech. And it probably does have better support, right? A little bit better support. Alright, let's go on to the Oathkeeper ones. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know like anything about these. I've like pretty much never used these. Does anybody have any input on these Oathkeeper ones for me? We're going to switch to Oathkeeper. Let's see exactly what they do, so we're not confused, right? So Smite has a weak cleave with a stun. Okay, it CCs, and it passes through, so this is kind of good with a gun, right? And it also works with a shield for hitting, so it's pretty strong if you're using a sword and board. Both S tier for Tarnish, and Hamilcar says Smite is S. Okay, so it seems like the S tier on this is unanimous. I can see why they feel that way. An AoE stun that also adds your shield damage sounds pretty gross. And Hamilcar thinks Shattering Smash is S if you have a melee weapon and shield. This one has type 2. Racial damage on Smite is also crazy. Oh, you're right, it does. Too bad it's not ethereal in Chthonics, right? Yeah, and you do have to use a shield for Shattering Smash, so I think I'm gonna take off S and put it in A just for that. If you didn't have to use a shield, this would be Omega S, I think. Dude, a Type 2 resistance on a proc? That seems really strong to me. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. I think Smite is S, and Shattering is probably... I think it's the top of A, though, man. Having resist reduction on a proc sounds so strong to me. And then especially if you don't happen to be a soldier, right? This gains a lot of value if you're using it and you're not a soldier. Because then you wouldn't have Warcry, right? Okay, so now we're on to the Shaman ones. I don't really know these very well either. I did note that Upheaval is kind of a wacky skill when I last looked at them. So let's take a look at these. So Feral Hunger is the one that's only... Feral Hunger... So the big downside immediately to the Shaman ones is they both require a two-hander, right? Yeah, you have to be using a two-hander because that's kind of a Shaman thing. Upheaval is like a kid nobody understands. Or better said, it is proc during a specific circumstances. Okay. Upheaval is D. People think Upheaval is really bad. Because it's like a reverse chance, right? It only happens when you're not doing something else, right? The hit is a crit, and other weapons was triggered. Only procs if you crit and aren't using another one. So it's very limiting. So it seems like most people kind of think that this one's pretty bad. And like the weapon damage percent and area is really small too, right? Maybe this is like a D one, right? Like it's so limiting. There's so many factors that limit this one. And you have to have really high OA to make good use of it, right? Because you have to be critting when other weapon procs don't happen. Yeah, I think you... So now what about Feral Hunger? Is this one better? So it still has the two-handed problem. It does have a better cleave than some of the other ones we've seen, and it heals you for a lot, which is good. This one seems a lot better. So Hamilcar thinks Feral Hunger is A or B. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. For a cleave one, it's really strong, right? Like, I feel like this is a little better than, like, Belgothian Shears, right? And where do we put Belgothian Shears? Those were B. A? Okay, so we're saying A. Do we think it's better than these? I think maybe it is better than Necrotic Edge. It's like Confuse versus Healing You. I feel like Healing You is a little better than Confuse, right? Because that works a lot better on bosses. Confuse doesn't do anything on a boss. And then Reaping Strike is mostly for... I mean, for Healing You, I think Feral Hunger is better than Whirling Death, too, right? So I think right about there is about right. I still think chilling rounds is a little better for the CC, the crazy CC it does for guns. Alright, so now we're on to soldier finally. Now I know one of these soldier ones has a DA nuke, which is kind of cool, but the problem is you have blitz, right? And this one's stronger, isn't it? Like the blindside DA nuke is way better. Oh, it is. It's way better. So this one does have a pretty good weapon damage, but it's a single target hit and it's pretty weak, right? It's like it's even worse than Amarasta's quick cut, and then the DA shred's only good if you don't have blindside. So I think this one is clearly worse than Amarasta's quick cut just because of the the overlap and non-stacking effects here, right? With guns, it's great. Oh, that makes sense. That's a good point, Andre. Incoming our gun build only guy. Because you would never want a blindside, right? So this is really good for guns. I wouldn't have thought of that. That makes it a little better then, right? But it's still single target only, and the weapon damage is like nowhere near something like Execute. Okay, so it's not as good as Execute. It's definitely better than, I mean, I think it's kind of, unless you're a gun character, so I guess maybe a B for this one, right? Which one is which? So I guess maybe a B for Markovians, huh? B? Yeah. I think it's weaker than Storm Spread, though. I think it's weaker than these. I think it's bottom of B. Alright, so Zul'Han, people are thinking both B. So let's make sure. Let's see Zul'Han. So this one has pretty strong cleave. This is like the Shaman one we just saw for Hunger, except it does slower enemy attack instead of healing, which to me sounds way weaker. Other than that, it's pretty much exactly the same. So it's like a weaker Feral Hunger, right? So yeah, B sounds about right. Alright, that's it. Thank you guys for your help. I would have been pretty blind on a lot of this without some experts in chat to help. So that's our weapon proc skill or weapon pool skill, depending on how you want to say it. Tier list.